Today, on Energy Contact, energy falls up and we build ourselves from the ground up. Today, we're going to find out how you build the visible you from that invisible upward current. And we'll see what it has to do with your aura and your chakras. So, prepare to rise to the occasion because we're going to get to the bottom of things right now on Energy Contact.
I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and I'll keep my mind on better things. I ain't gonna worry and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and I'll keep my mind on better things. Just keep my mind on better things.
Hello and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm presenting to you as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, happiness, self-improvement, and realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of seeing yourself and a new way of seeing the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. These things are all exactly the same. There is something about us that just loves to classify and categorize, parse these things out, separate, take one little cell out and look at it under a microscope and think we understand everything. But in fact, all that health and self-improvement we're talking about take place when we do just the opposite. It happens when we put these things together, when we make an energetic contact between the physical world and the unseen one. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move right ahead with that. Let's bring up our first slide. Everyone please understand that I am not a doctor. I don't care to be a doctor. This show is not a medical show, medical advice show, medical talk show, anything like that. Couldn't be further from it. Now I might call myself an energy healer or a chakra healer, things like that. So might a lot of other people. So might you if you came to me. But state, federal, and local governments absolutely do not. It's important to understand that. There's a lot of important information on your screen right now. Please read all of that if you will, with your full attention. But when you've got it down, now would be a great time to locate a pencil and paper. And here's why you want to do that. At the end of this show, we're going to run some credits. And on those credits, there's going to be contact information for me. Now, I invite and encourage you to contact me. I'm sort of hoping that something I have to say to you today might inspire you to want to do that. But in order to contact me, you're going to need that contact information. And in order to get it, you're going to need to have a pencil and paper. There'll be plenty of time to write it down if you've got your pencil and paper ready. All right, let's come back up here. Today is episode number 80 of Energy Contact. And if you're tuning in for the first time today, well, thanks. Thanks and welcome. I appreciate your being here. These shows are sequential. They build. So we're talking about things that we've introduced, explained, defined previously. There's some ramp-up stuff, some up-to-speed things that you will have missed out on. However, I do my very best to make sure that every show has a lot of value on a standalone basis. So I think you'll get a lot out of today's show just like it is, just by itself. If, however, it piques your interest, what you see today, well then I'll invite and encourage you to look around because there will be earlier programs airing at later times, either re-airing right here on this station or on at different days and times in different areas. And if you look for them, I'll appreciate it. All right, and now it's the time of the show where I get to bring my co-host on. It's time to introduce my pal Slim. This is my buddy Slim, and Slim is here for a reason. Since we're investigating what it is that the energy contacts in the physical self, we have to understand a couple of somethings about a couple of somethings, don't we? We have to understand something about energy, and this show is all about energy. But all of that energy out there somewhere does us no good whatsoever. It does us no good until we bring it into focus, until we bring it into contact with something. My pal Slim is here to help us understand what that thing is that the energy contacts. Remember, A body without energy is just a corpse. And energy without a body, well, it might be a lot of cool things, but none of them are human. Okay, previously on Energy Contact, we've been looking at your chakras and aura, haven't we? We've been doing that for a little while. And we've seen invisible things. We've seen that the visible and the invisible have absolutely nothing to do with the real and the unreal. Matter doesn't matter. It's just a projection. It's an optical illusion. It's a hologram. It's that invisible world of wavelengths and frequencies and vibrations. That's all that's real. That's all that's important. And it manifests itself in the form of the internal forces that animate us and the external forces that push and pull us around. That is what this physical body is a hologram of. We've seen that these external forces manifest themselves usually into one of three things. Either into gravity that falls down, entropy that falls apart, or energy that falls up. In other words, here in this physical world, we keep falling down until we hit the earth, and then we either bounce back or we break. We've seen that we don't really have an aura. We have a series of subtle bodies, sheaths, shells, layers, 6 of them in fact, and they're all constantly interacting with these forces. Now some people can see these subtle bodies, but just because we can see something doesn't make it real. So we're still trying to discern which of all these bodies, if any, are real and which ones are unreal. And even though what we have seen in the real world is that there's just one thing, this physical world appears to be made of dualities, of pairs, healthy and sick, rich and poor, pleasure and pain, cold and hot, happy and sad, raga and devesha, if you remember those shows we've done on that, yin and yang, call it what you will. Our job is to transcend that. And the degree to which we pull that off determines a lot about our success here in this world of physical bodies and in the real world too. We have seen that we have 7 main chakras in us, and that those 7 main chakras have a one-to-one correspondence with those bodies. That is, each of those main chakras corresponds to one and only one body. The one physical body and the 6 increasingly subtle ones. There's another thing that we've seen that's real on Energy Contact. We've seen that invisible body intellect. We've seen that all those materials in our brain, we were always taught in school they were brain things. The things that give us thought, memory, reason, recall, logic, intelligence, intellect. All those things are in fact in every cell of our body. They permeate every cell of our body. They saturate us. That's what your body is an unreal physical projection of. Your body is made in the image and likeness of that invisible body intellect. And it's made that way by design, on purpose. There's nothing random about it. And so we want to understand that real stuff. We want to look at the details of your chakras and your subtle bodies. We want to introduce you to somebody that you really ought to know by now. So, in order to do that, we're continuing to look at the visible built by the invisible. We want to see what your aura and chakras have to do with the fact that it is difficult, if not impossible, to be a happy person, a healthy person, a well-adjusted person, a spiritual person, until and unless you learn how to promote the flow of invisible energy through your physical self. We want to see in practical terms how that upward flow of energy not only affects and builds our physical selves, but how the real stuff turns into this physical us in the first place. We want to take that false and misleading concept of randomness out of the equation to determine what are the consequences of inhibiting the flow, and more importantly, what are the rewards of promoting it. But even this new understanding is not the goal. The goal is to get to what all of this aura chakra business have to do with your health, your growth, your happiness, your self-improvement, and the realization of your full potential. That's what we're interested in. Remember, there are just a number of great saints throughout history who did just fine in their spiritual path, and they never even knew what a chakra was, never even heard of it. The chakras at an intellectual level are not at all important. And yet, we're coming to an intellectual understanding of them. And so today, we're going to understand, we're going to examine that building process from the earth up. We're going to at least start the process of understanding how, while there is only one thing, different chakras sort of divvy out the different tasks of keeping and maintaining us, of our well-being. We're going to set the stage for understanding what these different chakras do, particularly the root chakra. So, we're understanding esoteric things analytically, looking at mysticism through scientific eyes. And this is a very worthwhile thing to do. But it also means that to some extent, we're classifying and categorizing. And please bear in mind that that's very dangerous territory here on Energy Contact. An analytical, academic knowledge of all this material without a conceptual feel, without incorporating it into your life, will lead you away from your goal rather than towards it. Okay, so that's where we're headed today. But first, we've reached the part of our show where we get to stop for a minute. We get to take a deep breath, take our virtual field trip, our journey in our mind's eye. And for today's visual journey, imagine that you and I are outside and we've got a super ball. You know what a super ball is? It's just one of those little balls that bounces very well. And you drop it a couple of times and watch it bounce back up. And then you tell me that, hey, you've been watching Energy Contact. And so you understand that that ball falls with gravity. And when it falls to the earth, energy from the earth enters it and it bounces back up. And you further say to me that you know that if that ball were not a bounceable ball, but if it were a drinking glass, when it fell to the earth, it would shatter and we would experience entropy. But I'm in an argumentative mood today. And so I tell you that, you know what? I say that ball really does not fall to the ground and bounce back. What it does, in fact, is it falls to the center of the earth. Just that the ground gets in the way. And now you've got a puzzled look on your face. And so to prove it, we dig a hole. And now, when we drop the ball, it doesn't just drop to about where your feet are anymore. It drops to the bottom of the hole. It keeps going until it gets to the bottom of that, so we dig the hole deeper, and sure enough, when we drop the ball in it again, it falls down deeper. And so finally, we take a trip to a canyon, and we drop that ball down the canyon, and that ball does not stop falling until it reaches to the bottom of the canyon. And so you realize, yeah, if there was a hole to the center of the earth, that's where it would go. As a matter of fact, you start to figure that if you could drill a hole right through the center of the earth and right out the other side, and that if you dropped a ball in one side, and somebody on the other side of the world dropped a ball down the other side of that same hole, that same pipeline, that those two balls would both keep falling till they hit in the center of the earth. They'd collide with each other and then just float there in suspended animation forever. Hold that thought. We like to say on Energy Contact that gravity falls down and entropy falls apart and energy falls up. Don't we? We've said it a number of times already. It's how we describe these three main external forces, that act upon us. Today, we're very interested in that earth flow, that upward flow. If you're constructing a building, you always start from the ground floor and build up. In fact, you do more than that. You do dig down. You start from the basement and build up. The concept of building a building starting from the midair and going down would be a dumb one, wouldn't it? The only place you'd ever see that is on a cartoon or something. So when we build our unreal physical self out of the energy that we truly are, we're doing the same thing, aren't we? We're constructing something, a building, a monument of sorts. Now let's see how entropy participates in that. It's been a while since we've looked at how entropy works, so here's our favorite sample explanation. The law of entropy states that things fall apart, that things become more and more disorderly forever. In other words, I can take a drinking glass and take it out on the sidewalk and drop it on the pavement, and I will get hundreds of pieces every time. But try as I may, I can take hundreds of pieces of broken glass and drop them on that same pavement, and I will not get a drinking glass. I can make a drinking glass out of pieces, but it takes work, and it takes more work than we can do standing on the sidewalk, huh? It takes work to create order out of disorder. But things fall apart all by themselves. Well, we know that none of these forces act alone. They're always iterating. Gravity, energy, and entropy, they always interplay with each other. And so, let's add a little more detail to our story. When you let go of that glass, in effect, you hand it over to gravity. And gravity takes it, and it falls down, and it falls to the very center of the earth. But something happens. The ground gets in the way. And when it does, entropy takes place. Gravity hands that thing off to energy. Actually, what happens first, gravity hands that thing off to energy, and the energy from the earth rises up into that glass, and then that energy hands it over to entropy, and it falls apart. If you had a camera and took a picture of that glass when you dropped it, you took a picture of the glass 1 millimeter before it hit the pavement, what you would see is a perfectly intact glass. The entropy doesn't happen until the impact does. All right? Now, energy is immortal. It's eternal. It's ubiquitous. And in fact, in practical terms, it doesn't really have a beginning. It doesn't have a source. But for our story today, we're looking at the source of energy from the center of the earth. Let's look at the same thing another way. Imagine that you jump off of something high. Let's say, for example, for some reason you're on your garage roof doing a repair, and the ladder falls. And there you are, you're by yourself, and it's a little garage. It's not that high, really. And there's nobody else around, the ladder's on the ground, and so you decide just to jump off. The whole time you're in the air, everything is fine. This is an example, as a side point, this is an example of how our senses lie to us. Our most primal fear is the fear of falling. But falling is not the problem. You can fall all day. It's landing that's the problem. It's that impact. All right, so you jump off the garage roof, and then you land. And when you land on your feet don't bother you much. But you know what does? Your knees. And then your hips. And you feel the impact of that energy jar all the way up your spine, jarring your skull. You might get a headache from it. This is interesting, how that energy moves up, isn't it? But right now you're thinking, yeah, but what does that have to do with my chakras and my aura? Let's go there. We have seen that you really do not have an aura, not the way we tend to think of it. What we call an aura is actually a group of things. Things that the old yogis called sheaths, or our subtle bodies. We have 7 bodies, 1 physical one, and 6 increasingly more subtle ones. And we can envision them as being in layers like an onion. And we can sort of visualize them as being like those wavy lines that you can see down a road on a hot day. Now, some people can see that. We've also seen that while we have hundreds and hundreds of chakras in us, we have 7 main ones. Now, one of the things that makes these 7 main chakras main is the fact that each one of them corresponds to one and only one of these bodies. And another thing is that these chakras are all along a little vertical pipeline in us called the Sushumna Nadi. Let's go back and we're going to review some of what we've learned about chakras. Let's bring up that slide. There on the left of your screen you can see those onion-like layers. And those little arrows there are showing you that mapping process, how each one of those chakras maps to one of those subtle bodies. There's names for those bodies, and those names are descriptive of what they do. On the other side of your screen there is a more schematic representation of your chakras. You'll notice from that picture that the front and the back chakras that the middle 5 chakras have a front and a back. They point out horizontally, parallel to the earth and parallel to each other. The top and the bottom chakras are vertical. They point out perpendicular to the earth. They do not have a front and a back. In a way, they are the front and the back of each other. Keep those springs in mind, because we're going to come back and look at those springs in a little bit. Okay, notice the colors there. The 7 main chakras each have their own colors, the color of the rainbow. And each of those chakras have its own geometric shape too. Let's move to our next slide and we'll look at a little bit more information about these guys. You can see here, we're going from the bottom up. That's what we're doing today. You can see that red root chakra in the bottom of that fellow there is the chakra that corresponds to the physical body. That's what the root chakra is. It's the chakra of the physical body. And that's profoundly important because it means that every physical thing going on with you is caused at and solved at the very root of you. The reason you're not fixing yourself is because you aren't looking there. And that's going to be the subject of the next dozen or so episodes of Energy Contact. But for this moment, we're going to gloss over it. That root chakra is called the Muladhara chakra. Let's move up quickly. The second chakra, the orange one, we call it the sacral chakra. In Sanskrit, it's the Svadhisthana chakra. It's the chakra of the emotional body, the emotional self. That's pretty profound too. The third chakra, the solar plexus chakra, corresponds to your mental body, your mental self. A spiritual thought has a yellow color, in fact. The name of the solar plexus chakra is the Manipura chakra. The green fourth chakra is the heart chakra. It's called the Anahata chakra, and it corresponds to the astral body. All that astral travel you hear about, it's a journey of the heart, literally and figuratively. Next up is the throat and the throat chakra, which maps to something called the etheric body, and it is called in Sanskrit the Vishuddha chakra. And then there's that third eye chakra that everybody seems to be so enamored with. It's the only one that's not round. It's the chakra of the celestial body, right there in between the eyes. And the third eye chakra is called the Ajna chakra. Now up there at the top is the crown chakra, or the Sahasrara chakra, and that is the chakra of something called the causal body. And the causal body is so named because it is the cause of the physical body. Alrighty, let's come back up here. Now we've been saying for a while now that the first chakra and the seventh chakra are like the front and back of each other. Well, you start to see the reason for that. The first chakra, the root chakra, is the chakra of the physical body. And the seventh chakra, the crown chakra, is the chakra for the energetic reasons that you even have a physical body. So, they go hand in hand, don't they? And this is all nice information, you're thinking. But now, we're on the other side of things. You're thinking, what does this have to do with jumping off of roofs and with things falling to the center of the earth? Well, we've opened a bunch of topics here. We've got a bunch of things open. So let's reset and keep them all in mind here as we move forward. Recall that the energy of the earth moves up through you. With every step you take, gravity pushes you into the earth. And the earth pushes back. And recall too that all this visible stuff is really just an unreal creation of real things. All this stuff here is really just energy that's too thick to vibrate at its proper level. Let's get my buddy Slim on camera here with me, and we'll look at that a little bit. Slim here, when we jumped off of our garage roof, when Slim jumps off a garage roof, he lands on his feet, but all that energy, well, it takes a second and stops at its knees, but then it takes a long pause here at this main horizontal structure. This is important here, this pelvis, because this is the place where the main horizontal us and the main vertical us, our spine, meet. Then all that energy transfers right up the spine and up to Slim's skulls. Physiologists will tell you, and so will doctors, dance teachers, yoga professors, everybody that knows body, that right there, that's where the action is. So while we're looking at Slim, let's take a second and see where those chakras are located on him. That root chakra is coming out of Slim sort of right where his stand is coming out of him. Points at the ground, points vertically. The second chakra is right here. This is the front bone of the hips. It's the only horizontal bone in your abdomen, called the pubic bone. The third chakra, we'll move Slim's tie here a little bit, is called the solar plexus chakra. Solar plexus is up here. It's down here a little bit below that actually. Heart chakra is right here on the sternum, right in the middle of your chest. Fifth chakra is at the throat. Sixth chakra, third eye chakra, right at that brow, right between the eyes. And then the crown chakra coming right at the top of the head. They're in the back too. We'll look at that some other place. Let me fix Slim's tie before we move along. Slim likes to look good. All right, so our spine then is where the action is, huh? It's not only our main vertical structure, it's managing a number of forces, a number of wavelengths and activities. It is close to that Sushumna Nadi. And so it's the center of the activity for that Sushumna and all of those main chakras. It's the center for our real energetic self, all those chakras, which maps to all those increasingly outward moving subtle bodies. if our spine stops working properly, then the rest of us can only hope to function poorly at best. But our story of upward flows doesn't end there. If gravity falls up, then before it can even get to our spine, it has to get past this main horizontal structure. Let's come back to our slides. We'll take a look at our chakra man again. And you can see that. Imagine for the moment, see the fellow with the springs there? Imagine that there's a garden hose that's running up into him. Now, our job is to make him like a fountain. He should be like a fountain. Water should be flowing out of all those springs evenly. And so, in order to do that, everything has to be equally open. Remember that the energy flows up. The water energy is flowing upwards. All right, let's come back up here. So, while the current New Age fad is about opening our third eye chakra, well, how much energy is that going to move through you? You can try to open your third eye chakra all you want, but I don't think you're going to do it. Not until you do something else. And even if you could, it's an empty box. There's nothing in there. No energy can even get to your second chakra until you do something about the chakra in the bottom. Energy falls up 99% of the time, and 99% of the people, for all practical purposes, the only chakras with which we need to concern ourselves with, the only chakra we need to concern ourselves with, is the root chakra. So, let's take just a little second to think about that. The root chakra is the starting point for moving energy, invisible energy, through your physical body in constructive ways. And when you do that one thing, you will be empowered to be a healthy person, a happy person, a well-adjusted person, a spiritual person, both in this unreal physical world and in the real one too. And that's what we're going to get to soon. But for now, let's go back briefly to that super ball to close up the story. Until we build or drill that hole through the center of the earth and out the other side, or until we start living in outer space where where we just float around in the air, we live in a world where everything that can bounce will, and everything that can't will break. And so for us, we want to be flexible. We want to be bounceable. We want to be resilient. And if we can do that, we will have vibrant health. We're going to learn not only what that means, but how to do that over the next couple of shows, and we will do that when we make energy contact. But for today, we're out of time. Thank you for joining me. I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in energy contact.
I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and I'll keep